Okay. I think I see some people coming in. This is great. Hello to everybody,
Hello.
wherever you may be. How are you? How are things going? Daytime, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. So that's the beauty of us hosting these calls is we just get to be able to connect with people that we don't certainly don't see on a daily basis. So we're just going to let everybody roll in, take a seat anywhere, front or back. Maybe one day we would love to do this live. So, well, this is live, but in real, in person, in a real studio, in a real hall. But I'm just going to sort of ramble a second whilst we capture and invite everybody in. My name's James Sommerville. I'm going to introduce you to Noma in 1 second. And what I'd like to just start by saying is like, wherever you are, please interact with us. Drop your name in the chat, drop your location, what type of a creative, if you're in a creative role, and we're assuming you must be to some capacity. It's all about, for us, getting to know each other. And from our perspective, Known and Known is not an agency. It's not an agent. We're not a client. We're just really trying to sort of use the time that we have at this moment in time with the technology that we have to bring people together. And we are about the craft. We are about anything that's creative, and we're about community. And I think that's what today will be around when we speak to Noma. Hopefully we'll get a sense of all that. So welcome to everybody. Whatever type of industry you work at every day, everybody's welcome. So focusing on the topic and the person and kind of many ways, the icon behind Noma Bar, someone who I've had the pleasure of working with for 10 years since my time at Coca-Cola. And we'll come back to that. So I'm going to stop sharing because I want people to I'm going to sort of click on some Coke work, but at the same time, I want to sort of exit this, stop my share. We'll come back to that. And Noma, welcome. Thanks for
Hello.
taking
Hi, guys.
time and
Thank you.
taking
Thanks for
time
the
out of your
invitation.
busy day and everybody. But say hi. Let's get this show going. It's great to see you, Noma.
Great to see you and great to see some of you. I see little faces in 2 centimeters. So yeah, good to see you all. And welcome to my studio. It's in London, in my garden, and it's very small, but enough.
I know that we touched on, obviously you're probably working on things, you're under NDA, like most people in our field. There's a level of secrecy until things are launched. But do you wake up and think about the project that you have to do today, or does something catch your eye? Maybe it's a cup of coffee, maybe it's outside and looking at the birds and the trees, or in the traffic of London. Do you kind of just how does your morning generally start as you sort of get into the more commercial side? But just give us a sense of how the day starts for you.
And it has changed during the years because I have two girls. So obviously, if you want to go to the daily schedule, during when the girls were in school is a bit different. But overall, over the last 20 years, I have the same routine, which sketchbook, little blanket, and I cross the road to Highgate Woods. It's a beautiful Victorian wood, like 400 years wood. Um, I sit there on a little blanket. This is actually a car shading blanket, so it's shape of sunglasses. And I have for many years kind of the same style of blanket. It doesn't matter if it's rain or snowing outside, or so I'm sitting on the floor for 6, 7 hours, and I brainstorm. So that's every day. That's the routine. I'm trying to avoid computers and technology during the day, and then I'm back to the studio and I start to execute my ideas in the wood. So I'm a bit like a fisherman, I go to the wood, I catch a fish, I go back to the studio and I start to execute very rough sketches sometimes. It could be a line or just just an idea and the direction, and then I continue on the sketchbook and continue to execute it, and then it goes digitally. And so the day end around 2 a.m., sometimes 3 a.m. Good day is 1 a.m. And I wake up at 7:30. Morning walk as well, like a 1 hour walk every morning. When I walk, I organize the day and
Yeah.
what I need to work.
I'm going
And
to ask you more about these sketches, and we have a few pages that I'm going to share. And I think most people know you for your precision. I'd almost call it surgical, crafted. But what I also enjoy looking at within your sort of collection of books are those doodle sketches, ideas, which I guess are part of, everybody's process. But before that, let's come back to that. I want to share and get back to, you and I when we first met, and talk us through some of this, Noma, because it's, as I mentioned before, it's probably 10 years ago now.
yeah,
And you and I was at Coke then, and we were looking for ways to tell new stories and et cetera, as most brands are always doing. And we came across each other, and I'll click through this, and in no particular order, you just maybe kind of could share with everybody some of the things that you worked on at Coke, and probably still are working on as well.
I think that my decision when I started to work with Coke, which is the same decision with every client, that it needs to be conceptual, imaginative, and not straightforward drawing in a way. So I with Coke, I used the same thing that I'm doing on editorial or other brand. It's about the idea, and that was the core of everything that I did with Coke. And I think it's amazing collaboration because I didn't expect that I will have that freedom. And and there's a lot of little details, and I think that the format is great, that it allows you to hide little things and little elements. And
And obviously, I know this work very well, and maybe some people have seen it, and maybe there's some of our friends on from Coke, maybe Rafa's on, or some of the team. But this idea that when a brand has a shape or a series of shapes, in the case of Coke, you just mentioned it, you could hide things. Now, when we zoom out from those polar bears, like we are here, each one of those, maybe we're not seeing that level of detail, but when we zoom in,
yeah,
we'll
if
find the
you
bottle.
zoom in, I don't know if you can zoom in, but look at the top left one on the gap between the leg and the hand. So you can see a Coke bottle. So they all have hidden bottles, which is amazing. We can talk about the bottle as well, which is such an amazing icon and tactile, and it's just a beautiful bottle. So, and I did everything with this bottle. So I started to draw with the bottle, and yeah, it for me it's kind of the next level of drawing to work with a given element that on one hand limits you, but on the other hand give you a lot of options.
Yeah. I mean, this flag, obviously the US flag, bottles, I guess the bottle cap. Do you then look for when there's a brand shape? I mean, take a shape that doesn't have quite an iconic memory for us. Maybe it's a new brand, maybe it's a start, maybe it's a kind of a more complicated shape. But certainly, is that part of your thinking to think about that shape, whatever that brand shape may be, and then start to weave that into your stories?
It's that shape, and it's also the meeting of icons in a way. It's so iconic that you can hide it. It's things that I didn't know before. So I've discovered that the highlight on Marilyn Monroe lips, and you can see it's also a Coke bottle. Or if you go back to Elvis, you can see the crowns on the glasses. So it things that I'm kind of keep discovering, and obviously the sideburn, which is Coke. But it's also meeting Elvis, which is icon. So these two, in that case, these icons, when they meet, it's very easy. And if you want to talk about stripping down, so when something is very iconic, it's easier to strip down, and it's going to be recognizable anyway.
I mean, this one was always interesting to me, and there's some others now where culturally they're very connected, but they're not necessarily famous, right? Unlike Marilyn or Elvis or some other characters that you've created, you're kind of representing more of a culture or a community in that sense, right?
I I think that I'm representing surprise and double meaning and unexpected. And a lot of time I'm looking at things that we all looking, if you go back to the can, so we all opened can and look at it for the rest of our life. This is, we've done it so many times, but before that, I didn't know that the hole can look like an afro hair. So it's kind of going to the daily, the boring things that we look at every day, if it's Coke or when I go to the wood and a lot of prints that I'm doing in my art, it's exactly in the same process. So it's kind of discovering unpredictable thing in the obvious.
Nice. And let's kind of click up through a few of these. These are kind of more of an international flavor in many ways, right?
Yeah, this is for China, and it's a little bit like the Coke project with the name. You remember that you can buy James bottle with your name on it. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing, but with characters. So you can send someone a Coke with your character. So it's like community of the dog lover, the escapist, the attention seeker. And so there's like 20 different characters in this project. The foodie, the comedian on the left. I think that we worked with something like 20 or 30 countries. So
interesting. Do you kind of create these personas, or kind of, or they are part of a kind of a brief? How does that come to you?
It's a brief, and some of them I didn't know. For example, if you look at the left one, it's interesting. It's called the watermelon eater, and it's a Chinese thing. It's a character that listens to other people that talk. I didn't know about that. And so if you sit in a restaurant and you listen to someone's conversation, it's called watermelon eater. And it's coming from markets that someone would sit and eat watermelon, but listen to the other people's story. So that's why you have lines on the ear. So it's eating and listening. And obviously he become a watermelon and his eyes are the seeds of the melon. And so this is a given brief in a way. Watermelon eater, do something with watermelon eater, or do something with logic genius on the right, which end up as a light bulb. So there's no rules, just ideas.
Nice. Yeah.
And this is completely
more detailed, right? From more simple from the previous page to a little bit more, kind of more immersive. Like there's more going on in a good way.
It's up to the brief. This is part of global Coke that expose different places around the world, culture, food, music. In this case, it's South Africa, and you can see Nelson Mandela made from Coke bottles as well. If you can zoom in, I don't know if you can zoom, but you can look at the zebra. It's made from bottles and elements that were given to me on the brief. So architecture and there is a music sports stadium in the female body on the right. So everything, it's iconic places. And I'm kind of taking all the icons together and create characters from those icons.
Great. Talk to us about, is there a brand out there that you really admire, but you've never actually worked for, but there's an idea somewhere in the Noma head as you're in the woods. As I kind of click through.
I think Lego is an interesting brand. I never work. I work with so many brands, but I never work with Lego. I think it's a fascinating brand. So yeah, if I can choose a brand, it's probably going to be Lego. It's brand that it's about creativity already. So that's what's fascinating.
Well, I met you at Coke. You created this. The team asked you to create this when I departed Coke. And so I was blessed to have that little bit of Noma kind of magic. I'm going to come back to this.
It's made of 150 bottles there, or even more. All the ingredients and everything.
I know, obviously.
Full of sugar.
Yeah, no, well, I'll go back and I never counted them actually. But let's go back to the idea of you kind of sketching and I've just got now this image of you in the woods on that kind of sheet that you described.
So let me explain about the sketches. Yeah, I'm surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of sketchbooks. So there is a sketchbook of daily commercial thing, and there are other sketchbook of and daily diary in a way, things that I'm doing during the day, or I'm going to meet you in a cafe and probably the napkin with a coffee stain will end up in the sketchbook and something will happen. So that's a bit different from the sketchbook that I'm sitting in the wood and brainstorming. But yeah, and these are sketchbooks for kind of big ideas or silhouettes. When I have something, I just draw it and it's there. And so it's some of them are reaction to things that I see, and some of them are layers and layers and cuts. So there's no rule, but it's my memory in a way. Those sketchbooks are kind of I remember where and when. I'm not good with dates and hours and streets and places, so kind of my memories to the visuals that I'm taking from places.
Is
And
there a point
I like to feel things as well. There's opposite to the surgical thing that you explained. And deliberately, it's like that. And I tear things. So I tear stickers, I tear tissues. And I love the tear, the fact to tear paper, the fact that it's not precise and you don't know what's going to happen and what you're going to get when you tear it. Suddenly you will discover something. It's someone's body, face, and it's uncontrolled. So I never use scissors on sketchbooks.
Noma, many of these sketches, are they a part of your process for a commercial output, or is it more personal work for you at this point?
It's more personal because the story, you're not going to understand the story. You wouldn't know that this is from Japan on the left. And when I went to GGG exhibition with Mickey, my agent, and you wouldn't know that on the right is me struggling for 5 hours to put together IKEA fan that doesn't that doesn't fit. So this is the instruction of how to put the fan together in IKEA. So these are personal in a way, but if I'm going to have a story about hot weather, it might be that elements from here, or about fire and fight, so things like that can come to the kind of commercial. So they're feeding each other, and the idea is that the brain and the hand will constantly work together. It's a little bit like being a sport, doing sports, or being professional runner. It's kind of constant. That's my gym in a way. The gym of my brain. I keep training myself when I'm outside the studio, when I'm in the train, and when I'm in the street, when I engage with people. Normally, my engagement with people, it's not normal because I'm collecting things and I put them in the sketchbook. So it's a slightly different way to see the world.
This idea of reduction, which I sort of spoke about, and the fact that there is so much noise out there and content, and none of us can hide from it. But you are this master of just stripping away the unnecessary without losing the story. In fact, actually elevating the story, the image. Is that something? Is there a point where I'd love for you to talk about this one where you maybe go too far, you make a happy accident mistake, something happens. This Pulp Fiction one is obviously a genius, but maybe there's also a hidden story behind this for you to share as well.
In general, reduction, it's relative. Being minimal, you need to be in maximalist environment in a way. So if the environment around me wouldn't be so busy, and I started to feel it from the mid 80s, 90s, David Carson, stretching type, multi-layered Photoshop, and I felt that I need to kind of clean myself when especially after I graduated. And so reduction for me is a personal kind of also personal reaction to what's around me, to the noise around me. But it's also a pleasure that there's something clean about it. And it's a bit like moving. I enjoy moving from the noise in the sketchbook and clean things on the screen and kind of make things more communicating as well. And in this case, there's a funny mistake. If you show another, it's actually started in London. I got the commission and I started to work on it in London. I went to Japan. I sent it. It's been approved. Almost went to print, but I said I need to look at it. Went to Australia. And when I opened the laptop, all the afro hair fell down on the guns and they disappeared. It was just an accident of layers for people who don't know how I work. So Illustrator is based on layers and things can move. So the whole layer actually covered the gun. And I thought that, that's it. I don't, I don't need a gun. But it's something that happens quite a lot. Yeah, it's debate. Do I need eyes? Do I can stay with only one eye, or I can stay with a mouth, or how can I tell the story with one little thing?
Do you, a couple of thoughts, you mentioned Illustrator, actually, Adobe Illustrator, but do you, based on that word, do you kind of feel like, okay, give me one answer, illustration or illusion? There's, in terms of what you think, how people see this and your work.
If they see illustration or they see illusion, I think that I don't know. You need to ask them. I see illustration, but sometimes illusion. I don't like the word illusion somehow, or visual illusion, because illusion take me to something out of context. The duck and the rabbit, and illustration is about the story. So it's probably illustration. Illustration coming from light, illumina, light. So you put in light on text, and this is what I'm doing. And the illusion is there, but it's not the main part. It's the illustration, and it's to tell the story. In this case, reduction as well. I'm still getting, I don't know, this was published 7, 8, 9 years ago. And I still get emails from people that discovering that there is a commander on the right side of the image. You can see a face on the right image, a close-up. And so he's kind of leaning on the caped woman, which is one of my favorite covers. And for me, it's obvious, but people still discovering it. And it's interesting to discover something after many years as well. And when you have a book on your shelf and suddenly you see something that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, you're connecting us to things that we know, of course. It could be a book, a movie, a movie star. There's also, in your editorial world, there's to a degree, there's a responsibility. You're kind of, you may not like this, but there's kind of like a visual journalism thing, and certainly in the sense of what's happening somewhere in the world, there's always a news headline. And your editorial work is, I'm not sure whether that's kind of monthly commissions or, on demand. How does that work from your side as well, Noma?
As you can see, I live in different circles. Probably the inner circle is an artist, designer or illustrator, journalist, and the journalism thing, it's a different world from the branding in terms of reaction and being fast. I was doing for 10 years the comments and debate section in The Guardian, the commentary. And so that's really, really fast. The copy arrive at 12, need to be ready by 5 o'clock. And it's different way of working with journalism, but the freedom is massive. So it's great. There's a lot of freedom to express myself. Although I'm illustrating words and a story, it's a different, and the speed matters as well because things need to go out and straight. But this is one way of which is more newspapers. In magazines, it's a different way of working because there's more time. And I'm doing now, I have monthly illustration in magazine and weekly illustration in Dutch magazine. So I'm still doing things that are weekly, and I'm scheduled for kind of the rest of the year on a weekly thing and monthly thing. And each thing is, everything starts in the wood with sketchbook, but then it goes different in terms of how things develop. I would say that with brands, it's more difficult, probably. There's more decision makers. and it's more complicated. Each image really go through so many stages, while in journalism it's faster.
And
And
do
it's
you
and it's riskier as well. So
how do you feel about, because obviously myself included and maybe many people on the call who are part of more of a brand world in a sense that does layer in a lot more decision making, opinions, maybe even testing, versus a cover for a book, which you maybe you're responsible to the author or the public or the publisher. So in other words, larger groups or smaller groups, do you are you okay navigating those two kind of layers? And does
yeah,
your work get diluted when there's lots more decision makers? How do you feel about that?
I hope that not. Sometimes when it happens, I'm stepping back. I'm not taking jobs that I know that there will be a risk of that. So you need to sense it from the start. And I'm rejecting a lot of works that I feel that maybe it's not going to work. But I'm okay with changes and final one and final two, and those kind of endless files when it goes to brands and commercial work. But it's easier when there's one decision maker, when you work with
Yeah.
creative director, and in a way, I'm privileged because most of my clients are creatives and creative directors. They're from ad agencies or
Mhm.
from magazines or publishers. So I'm working with people that understand my work. No one really come to me and require something completely different from
Question
myself.
from someone. Question from someone in the group. Joel asks, "How do you?" And you've touched on deadlines, but how do you cope with a tight deadline if there's a like Noma, we need this tomorrow, because either maybe it's topical, it's newsworthy, or they're just launching, or is that something you can factor in given your process and the or do you prefer to have a little bit more thinking time and crafting time? Where do you live, or how do you feel about those super tight deadlines?
Yeah, go back to the Guardian. For example, the Guardian day would start with it's a daily illustration. So the next day it will start with 8,000 words that will come at 12 o'clock. Roughs will be need to I need to send roughs by 3 o'clock, final
Mm-hmm.
by 5 o'clock. It's crazy. So after a day like that, I'm kind of on my back, exhausted, and sometimes I don't know, Boris Johnson will change his speech or something, and then you get a new copy at 3 o'clock, and the deadline will be extended to 6 o'clock. It's really, really hard. So I prefer more time. Definitely more time is better, but a lot of things can happen on stress as well. So a lot of kind of quick decisions, and sometimes it's interesting, when you surprise yourself. But for my personal health, it's longer, it's better.
Well, on that, I mean, obviously, health for everybody in our industry. But Shane, as a build on that, a question from Shane in the audience: do you ever encounter creative blocks? Now, given sometimes we all have these deadlines and we have to deliver, is there a point where you're kind of like trying to, like a writer's block, but in your case, illustration, storytelling?
No.
Okay, great. Because the follow up to that was, and if so, how do you overcome them?
And these little jeeps that bump into a wall and turn and go like that and spin, these little cars, it's a little bit like that. And I don't allow myself to bump into the wall. And if I'm bumping into the wall, I'm turning, and I know that there's a solution. And so I never had a block, and for me, everything is possible to illustrate. And I'm dealing with crazy, extreme, difficult briefs. And, I think Coke and things that you see here are more clear. But, when it goes to science and health sector, things are very difficult to illustrate. But there's a solution all the time. There's one word that will meet another word, a story. So I never had kind of something that I was blocked.
the reason this is the black screen is there's an animation and it's perfect. You've teed this up perfectly from one to another. This idea of connecting things. So I'm going to play a little one of Noma's animations where you have this kind of seamless visual journey. Maybe I'll play it first, then you can speak to. This is just one of many, many, many that you sent.
The big brown bearded biker biked with broken brakes. As the big brown bearded biker's bike with broken brakes broke into my blind spot, I blinked and braked, not bumping into the big brown bearded biker's bike. When the road gets hard to read, active blind spot assist by Mercedes-Benz.
Not only, fully connected visually, fast, quick storytelling. So talk to us a little bit about the animation kind of side of your work as well, Noma. And do you script that? Is that coming from the agency or the brand? You're in collaboration with them, and, just how you get to this end solution, which is, I didn't look, but it's probably 15, 20 seconds.
I think that animation is a bit different from what we talk on the static in terms of process. And here I'm combining my two sides of personality, the introvert and the extrovert, because when I go to something like that, I'm director of animation. I need to work with musicians, writers. Obviously, Helen and Dutch Uncle are the production and doing amazing job of the whole orchestra. But it's a different way of working in terms of it's a large team, and sometimes we can end with 30 people that are involved in animation.
Yeah.
But the core of it is it's the sketchbook and the wood and drawing, and then going to computer and preparing everything for the animator and changing million things with clients, and one detail that will move will change.
Now is what's up with? Well, it's not the big that beat the small anymore, but the fast that beat the slow. It's not the amount of marble in your reception, but the relevance of your insight. It's not an accident who succeeds today, but a deliberate choice of a capable team. It's not the latest management fad, but proven principles. It's not those who talk about owning a business, but those who, like you, are doing the business. Kelly Partners, Chartered Accountants, they help business owners who want to go somewhere.
What I like about this one is the fact that, okay, I don't know Kelly and Partners, Chartered Accountants, but, all credit to them for engaging you in whichever way they did. But this idea that, maybe they're not the, kind of cool, sexy brand out there that everybody knows around the world, but they've had either the courage or the foresight to be able to engage someone like you, Noma. Do you have a lot of brands like that also kind of connect with you aside from the more famous, well-known brands?
Not a lot. This is an interesting Kelly Partners. It's a guy that taken a small accountant, a bit like Foxton model in terms of business. Now we have something like 50 branches around the world. Mm-hmm. So we become massive in a couple of years, and it's quite unusual to what I normally do, but it gives me a lot of freedom, and it's fun to work with. I don't choose by the fame of the brand or it is about the brief and about creativity. So. And sometimes it's very interesting to go to this area, and not the Lego area, which is already creative, and start to do creative things there in kind of things that call boring categories or dry categories, like accountants. So it's interesting.
Well, this one's quite personal to me as well, because we kind of worked on this a little bit together. This idea of, sometimes everyone is a lion, and sometimes we can all be a cat, slightly, smaller, more kind of both careful in the way that they live their life, both the lion roaring and the cat purring. But this notion of being able to blend that and turn this circle or rotate this circle upside down, and we get to see both sides of that story.
Yeah, that was part of your brief in a way of transformation and kind of changing, and the cat want to be a lion if you go back, and the lion want to be cat. It's actually going to be in my exhibition as well. And
Not this one. I'm going to go back.
yeah, this one.
I'm trying to navigate Keynote because the people coming in, I have to accept and all that. But I think this idea of being able to just
Well, it's not the big that
Whoa.
tell two stories between a lion and a cat. I mean, for people on the call, this was a thought of my personal transformation. I was, and still am an introvert, but sometimes I realized I needed to step up and be a lion. But just the way that you perfectly blended those, and those are, speak about your exhibition that's coming up, because I know you've got this on a wheel that, people can rotate and discover that.
Yeah, it's going to be in Tel Aviv Museum, and it's going to be 4 floors, and sculptures, prints, and rotating things. And some of the elements will be 3-meter sculptures, videos, sketchbooks. Each floor is different. And it's a retrospective in a way. And very exciting, massive space. So I'm working for a year and a half with large team on this exhibition. And yeah.
Have you started to publish? I mean, where could people either find it, discover it, go there physically in person, or will there be an online version of this?
I hope so. So when we'll start to announce it publicly, and so people will see it, and hopefully we will show videos and images from that.
Here's another question or two from Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. Which industry, Noma, do you enjoy working in the most? We've touched on, beverages, as we can see here, or FMCG, accountants, publishing, automotive, probably, hospitality, wherever. Are there you mentioned Lego, are there particular categories, subjects that excite you as well?
I can't put my finger on kind of category that I really enjoy all of them. It sounds bad, but yeah, just give me brief and a reason to draw and to think, and I enjoy it. Probably the editorial and the book covers have more freedom and are more edgy, so maybe editorial. And I have a weekly column it's like the Dutch Guardian, and it's about debate, so it's weekly debate between 2 experts. And that's interesting because it goes to kind of extreme subjects. And every week I'm surprised by the subject. But I can be surprised by, working with Coke and getting interesting brief. So no, I don't think that I have kind of one favorite category.
I've stopped sharing because we have so many questions coming in. Catherine Knowles, particularly, thanks, Catherine, ton of questions. One of them is which art movements or styles do you either inspire you? Did you read? I'm super interested also to know where you studied and where you mentioned earlier graduated. So are there things from kind of history that still kind of capture your attention and you want to discover more of just talk to us about the past and how that inspires you today?
It's probably, there's these postcards who go with me all my life. It's next to my desk. And this is where my father used to work for 46 years. It's like a tree and forest organization. And you can see a child that hug a tree, but the tree is actually the child. So his legs are the trunk. And this is my starting point, which is kind of very graphic, but you can take it to Polish posters, German, and early 20s design. So probably things like from that area, and early screen print, Russian propaganda. You can find Japanese work, Chinese work. It's really mixed. And I think that my style is changing as well with the brief, and every brief takes it somewhere else. And when it goes to animation, it's completely different. But yeah, maybe Polish and German posters, mid-century, Bauhaus.
Yeah, Let's find another couple of questions. Curious how you illustrate the concept, such as more of a concept such as optimism, and that came from Adrian in the chat. You know, like a more of a, I guess, a feeling, a concept rather than a subject matter.
And everything can be visualized. So you're talking about illustrating optimism.
I guess that's somebody's question. I suppose that, you know, if
But
I can interpret that,
optimism has different visual interpretations as well, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with the smiley symbol, and it's probably, you know, the first thing that is smile. But then what else? I will never get story about optimism. It will be optimism and something. So being optimist and being desperate, for example. And then the smile becomes slingshot. So, and even abstract or difficult words, there is a visual that can represent them, and I can start to work on things like that. But if I'll sit down for a couple of hours, I'm sure that I would start to find different metaphors for optimism.
Yeah, this one's kind of slightly longer question. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name. It looks like it's maybe even in Russian, but thank you for the question. Noma, hello, Noma. Have you ever had a result that you thought was very successful in your opinion, and effective, intelligent, etc., but the end, no one, meaning possibly a client, maybe someone you're working with, you're collaborating with, they didn't quite understand it, they didn't get it, they didn't see what you were seeing. Is that ever kind of crept into your kind of process? And how, and if so, how do you overcome that? Do you just kind of like, okay, we're not in the same place, or do you try and fix it towards maybe something that they can see?
First of all, I'm not relying on what I see, because I see things that sometimes other people don't see. So I need to ask people who are out of the business, like Dana, my wife, and my girls, for example. So I will go and ask, what do you see here? If they wouldn't see, maybe I need to kind of work on it more. And then it goes to Helen, and from Helen it goes to our director. So it has a lot of stages until things go out and people see it. So if it's completely unseen, I think that people will let me know that they can see what I see. But sometimes I know, or people around me see things, but other people don't see it, and it happens online. And one of the images that I just put with mouse and cheese for our talk. Mm-hmm. So some people thought that it's Pac-Man. I never thought that it looks like Pac-Man. They look at it from the right to the left. I don't know if you can show this image.
I'll find it.
So in a way, I never see it, but you know, people told me, what is it? Is it Pac-Man? I can see, and then I explain it's a mouse that inside the cheese. Oh, and then the moment actually came after. But everyone around, you know, it's in my book, and everyone around me see it. So I can't control what people see and how they see and where they see the work. So it's difficult in a way, in that way.
Yeah, you mentioned to me before, because we were chatting, and it's like, is it 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds? Never, you know, until it's pointed out. Like, you know, and that's actually such a great thing, isn't it? Because you're not intending to just spoon feed them, and that they should get this in 5 seconds. They may never get it, and that's okay.
So if they don't get it, so they miss it. If they will discover it in the future, it's just joy. And I know when I'm getting letters from people that discover things later, so they really enjoy it. And a lot of time people like to tell their friends as well. So it's kind of, I'll show you, did you see that? So I'm getting from people that someone else told them about it. And I guess, you know, a lot of my work, my mother never understands. So, and it took me a lot of time to explain her.
She's a good test before things go out into
yeah, I never ask. I never ask my mom. She's in flowers and oil painting. You know, it's a different world.
And so on that, so your mum is an artist. So I guess where did your creativity, your creative streak, your father sounded like he worked in a kind of timber stroke forestry. How did your creativity develop?
And my sister is artist, and my other sister is my two sisters. Now she become artists, so it's in the family. My uncle was artist, so we had art in the family. But my parents were not, and they didn't want me to study art and to study design. They didn't understand it. But then through the years, they kind of understood it. And yeah, but I wouldn't call it artistic family. I see my girls, this is artistic family. So my girls are what we are giving to our girls. It's weekends in Tate Modern and British Museum every week. So this is kind of artistic family. My first exhibition was when I was 13 or 14. But that's why I'm hungry, I think because when you see too much art and when you feed a child with too much, there's no hunger there. And there's something in me that wanted art, and it was something that was far, far away. I lived in a small town. And something about that kind of attracted me to do something completely different from my environment and to get out from there.
And when you studied Noma at college or university, wherever, was it like more fine art, an illustration course, or graphic design? If somebody wanted sort of to, maybe, someone looking to either change their career or develop their illustration style, or they're just starting out in maybe a student, what type of course did you attend that led you to what you do today?
It was graphic design, typography. I studied 4 years type design, illustration, magazine design. I used to do large broadsheets, and a lot of newspapers that I'm working with, I analyze their grids in courses. And what was interesting in Bezalel, in this college, in the university in Jerusalem, that they treat us as artists. And that's interesting. And I remember my first drawing that my teacher came from the back and said, sign here. And I said, what? Sign. So what do you mean? You just draw it, sign. And I remember that. So I didn't appreciate myself, why I need to sign on it. And they treat us as artists, not as graphic designers that's gonna do technical stuff. It's a mix of kind of artists and designers, probably similar to what Royal College is kind of doing as well. And
back to your typography. I noticed in your sketchbooks there was some type. Do you still like to keep your hand in that? We did a couple of things together where type was involved, but obviously now your illustration is so prominent. But do you like to still go back to type?
I escaped from type. When I came to London, most of my portfolio when I came was type and illustration, but type in Hebrew. And then I realized that no one needs in London in Hebrew typographers, and kind of illustration took over. It took over to the level of what I'm doing. I'm a little bit like actor who can act in his language. And so I went to silent language, and I went the opposite. Because I felt that I'm not feeling the Latin letters the way I feel the Hebrew letters. And I cannot do things that I'm doing with Hebrew letters and understand them completely in English. And I started to look at my hands and started to draw my hands and tell story with the negative space of my hands, and created my own non-verbal language. And this is why you probably will find it in the sketchbook, but you're not going to find type in my work at all, or even speech bubble that say something, or it's not that. I think Chinese is the only typographic project that I did. And it's very interesting project because it's kind of, I don't know if you have any images from that, but it's really what I'm doing, but with Chinese letters. And it's an interesting typographic illustrative project.
Mm-hmm. Question from Josh. Back to your garden. how important is your studio being in the garden? And also, I'll build on that. If you happen to move, relocate, not that you would you look for that garden stroke woodland again? Or let's say when you travel and you're still working, is that kind of, sort of part of the process is to be within that sort of surrounded by nature? And how important is that?
For me, it's very important to be surrounded by nature, and I need this balance from city to nature. But when you start to understand nature, it's exactly the same. So I enjoy both, but I can't see myself. I live in North London. I'm 15 minutes from Oxford Street in a way, the busiest street in London, or 20 minutes from Oxford Street. But then I'm in kind of quiet corner, and the noise and the quietness are a nice balance. But when you go inside the wood and you live in the wood the way I live, you start to see the noise and understand what's going on, and it's very similar to what's outside. And the crows trying to steal the blackbird's eggs, and the magpies fighting, and I hear the noises, I recognize them, I recognize when they're fighting, I recognize the tension there, and nature is exactly like the city. So it's just a different view on the same thing. And you walk in the morning and you see a pigeon is spread all over the grass, and you know that a fox was here last night and something happened. So it's kind of the same thing as the city, but in a different way. And my studio it's in the garden, but it's not in the wood. I cross the road to the wood, but it has the same feeling. I hear birds and squirrels and nature. And I don't know, I enjoy it.
Very cool. Question from Ron. So I guess the quote elephant in the room is going to come up. What's your view about AI and protection of IP? So I guess, is there a point where you ever use it, for your execution? I'm sure when you're applying it onto things, that's an easy kind of tool from a kind of productivity side. But what's your general view? And in the future, is it a worry of yours that someone could just create a Noma Bar using AI, or is that a compliment? Does that kind of make your human efforts more valuable in a way? Just touch on that, because we couldn't get through this call without mentioning AI, I guess.
Yeah, there's many questions here. About myself, I don't worry. I worry about the future, about the next generations and what's going to happen with AI. I'm just open. And this is, can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
This is 8 years old drawing I did as a child of my neighbors. And you can see my neighbor, which was a businessman, and I put a graph in his teeth. And this is process of child that studied graphic design and developed and discovered typography and discovered negative space and discovered concept. But it's evolution, and if you look at from here, that was 45 years ago, to Jean Reno, for example, here, which you can see, hand grenade. A lot of things happened in my life and I've developed, and it's a process. And I'm thinking that as a child, if I will have the opportunity to press and to have an oil painting in Picasso style when I was 8 years old, I probably wouldn't go through this process. And that's my fear with AI. It's not a faking. It's about the passion of people to create, and it will kill that. And the passion to create is to do something that no one has done before. It's to confront every day the landscape that you see and draw them, or people on the tube, or understand faces, understand human face. When I look at you, suddenly I'm seeing, Coke bottle. It's something that if the machine will start to direct me, it's not going to work. And my worry is, for kids. So as a child, they will stop to draw, they will stop to look, and they will just talk to a computer that will create the image. So what's the point? Why I need to buy oil painting and start to paint when I can press on the button and do it? So that's one side of AI. And if I'm using it, I'm experimenting with AI, and it helps me, for example, to design the exhibition. It somehow skips the Photoshop and then hours of creating layers of sculpture in space. So things like that, I've used them to visualize things in my exhibition. And I think in one of our presentation, one of the latest for T-shirts and things like that, it's kind of skipping on Photoshop and all the hassle of Photoshop. AI is helping it, but I never use it for ideas or for my executions. And I'm in a stage that my language I know what I'm doing. I know the language that I talk, and I don't need a boost from a machine. And I can't control it if they will copy me. Somehow now the AI is after the realism, after the painting, after the images and realistic pictures. I couldn't see any conceptual interest in work with AI, but I'm sure that it's going to happen. Yeah, overall, it's a powerful tool. It's the biggest revolution in the world so far, I think, in terms of the generative AI. The other AIs are amazing, AI in health and in other sectors. They're doing a great job in health. But the generative AI, it's the first time that you can draw without using your hands, which is, I don't know if to call it to draw or to do something, but all our history, we use, digital pen, real pen, craving on stones, on metal, cavemans. We use tools, and now we don't use tool, and I don't know. It's very odd.
It would be interesting. I'm looking through, the lens of your two daughters. I have young children. Many people on the call will also have young children thinking about this, the future of creativity, and whether that process that you have today of illustrating, hand drawing, question from a Fluid Design Lab, the importance of hand drawing and then moving to a digital representation of that hand-drawn sketch, and whether that digital representation will just be a different tool. But the process can still maybe hopefully survive. I don't know. None of us really know at this moment.
Yeah.
But okay, so there's literally dozens and dozens of questions coming through in my feed, so I've been a little distracted, but I would love to send you those questions, and through Helen, and thank you to Helen as well for helping us organize this talk. We're coming up on the hour. Noma, this has been really great. Just to get you and, find time to do this and pull you into a call and persuade you to do this, very generous with your time. So I really appreciate that, Noma.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure. So did we finish, or there's more questions?
There is more questions, but I'm conscious of everybody's time. Actually, we're 11:59 for me. We're on the hour. We generally try and keep this to 1 hour because everybody's kind of busy, but I'm going to forward you all these questions. Yeah. Maybe we can kind of do a Q&A online through Helen, through you, and we can publish some of these if you have time to do that. Yeah. But, thanks to you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to everybody who has joined us. Noma, say a few words and I can close out.
No, thanks for coming. It's a very odd concept because I can't see you and I can't talk to you, so I don't know who's there. It was pleasure, and yeah, I hope to see you again or to do something again.
Great. Well, if people hit you up and send you a kind of a message on Instagram or wherever you hang out, this is all about what we're trying to do is just make connections, commercial connections, new clients. That's great. But just people who are passionate about great craft storytelling and everything that you've been doing since you obviously were a very young boy as well. So thanks again, Noma. Thanks to everybody who's joined us. we'll let you get back to your busy days, and we will publish a cut down version of this for YouTube for those people who would either like to listen to it again, or maybe they missed it and we can forward it to those people as well. But from everybody from the Known Unknown side, thanks guys. This is great, and we love doing this. We'll hopefully see you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, have a great rest of the day.
Bye bye.